The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
We are going to go ahead and get started. So welcome everyone. This is Dr. Lauren Levine. I'm your host and moderator for this evening. I wanted to welcome everyone to tonight's presentation. We've got a great topic and a great speaker as well. We had well over 100 people that were registered for the webinar, and I see a number of people are still logging in right now. I'm only going to speak for a couple of minutes or so. I want to make sure that our presenter, Cheryl, has as much time as she would like to speak. We also want to make sure that we leave time for questions. Now, many of you have been on webinars in the past, so the format's going to be very similar. For those of you who have not been on webinars, you should have a GoToWebinar control panel on your screen. Now, we can't take audio questions, obviously, for 100 people on the call. But we do take written questions. So you go ahead and type in your questions as you think about them. We'll make sure that we get to those questions at the end in the order that they're received. When you log out, there's going to be a very short two-question survey. Basically, would you like me to follow up with you for any reason? Would you like Cheryl to follow up with you? Just go ahead and indicate that if one or the other is true, and we'll make sure that we follow up with you as well. We are also able to provide continuing education credits for those of you who are on the call this evening. I am happy to handle that, and that's AGD PACE CE. That will go out usually within 24 hours. I'll probably try to see if I can get them out this evening, but it might be in the next couple of days as well. Now, as I said, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Lauren Levine. Everyone knows me as the digital dentist. I've been doing these webinars for about 5 years now. What I try to do is to present topics that I think are just interesting. Sometimes they don't fall into my area of expertise, which is technology. Certainly tonight's does fall into that area. But really the goal is to provide content that is just hopefully stimulating and interesting. And you don't necessarily have to agree with all of it, but as long as you get a couple little nuggets or pearls of wisdom out of the webinar, then in my mind it was almost for sure worth it in the long run. And I really think that's going to be the focus for tonight's webinar. You know, I work with practices all over North America, a lot in Canada as well as the U.S. Many of the dentists that I'm working with are in their mid-50s, early 60s, and they said, you know, I'm at that point where I really want to think about getting an associate. I want to retire, bring someone to buy out the practice, and I need to try to get the practice to that point where it's going to be very saleable to someone. So I see so many practices making the mistake of just jumping into things like digital radiography and CAD-CAM and cone beam and all this high-end expensive stuff. I mean, if you really think about it, if you're trying to sell your practice or bring an associate, the thing that's going to be the most value to you as a seller is having a high production. The more money that you're producing, the better it's going to be in the long run, and that's really what your focus should be. And that's really the focus of tonight's presentation, is that we tend to look at some of these high-tech things, but the fact is that most of us more or less have a gold mine of uncompleted treatment in our practice, and if we utilize our practice management software properly, there's really a potential there to make the practice a far more attractive to a potential associate or buyer. Now, as much as I would be happy to talk on this topic, as I said, it's really not my area of expertise. Tonight's speaker, though, really does have an expertise with that, and that's Cheryl Canhai. Now, one of the reasons I like having Cheryl to do these webinars is even though that she's the president of a practice management software company called Maxim Software Systems. They make the Maxident practice management software. What you'll see if you've been on past webinars, and you'll see from tonight's webinar as well, is she tends to really emphasize more on the concept. She's not here to give you an infomercial on Maxident, but more to say, listen, these are the things that you need to be looking at. Here's the features that the software can do. Here's the things that you should be focusing on. And oh, by the way, Maxident happens to do all those things really well. She joined the company back in 1999. She quickly rose through the ranks from a sales rep to sales manager to general and sales manager, and she took over for the entire company back in 2011. Over the last 15 years, she's advised over 1,000 dentists on implementing dental software systems to improve office efficiencies, increase productivity, and obviously boost income. Her dedication to Maxim and its clients means she spends a lot of time, a lot of hours, and a lot of energy to provide new products and services. to further enhance dental offices, and she continues to maintain close contact with Maxident's family of software users to really make sure that they're happy with the company and the product as well. She really is a recognized subject matter expert. She plays a key role in driving the company forward and constantly strives to make sure that Maxident's moving into the future. So at this point, I'm going to turn the microphone over to Cheryl. Cheryl, we are looking forward to tonight's presentation.
Thank you very much, Lauren. Again, that was an awesome introduction. My next slide here kind of describes what I do and who I am, and to tell you the truth, after what you just said, I really don't need to show it. So, because you just reiterated everything that's there. So, I am the company president for Maxident Dental Software. I've been on these webinars and hosted these webinars with Dr. Lauren Levine for many years. In the last year, I have, this is probably my sixth webinar this year. There's so many dentists that have attended because, again, like Lauren said, we're getting these pearls of wisdom, these little nuggets of information. And what I'm doing is trying to get dentists and make them aware that they are literally sitting on a gold mine, and there's a whole contingent of value that is being missed when a practice transition takes place. I will talk about some of my experience through this webinar, and we'll host questions toward the end. Okay. This webinar specifically targets mid-career dentists who's looking to sell within the next 10 years or so. Well, this webinar also is geared towards offices with paper charts or with basic charting software programs. Ideally, it's for dentists that want to maximize the value of the practice and want to get the best price for when they sell the practice. Lauren mentioned this is eligible for CE points. There's information that's available at the end. So I'm going to start off with a real-life story. Really quickly, Dr. Jim, the seller, wants to sell his practice. Dr. Sam wants to buy it. They use a broker. The broker A, uses a formula that undervalues the practice. The seller, Dr. Jim, doesn't feel right about it, but can't stop the sale because he's under contract. So what is the seller going to do? So the idea is, before you even get into this jam, let's prepare your practice so the price that's set is realistic. We're going to study some trends and just talk about openly about some trends in the industry. So we all know that the dentist population is aging in North America, and there's a lot of misinformation out there. And a lot of these things are surveys that I've taken myself and discussions I've had with all kinds of dentists from all over the place. So what's interesting is that sellers don't know what buyers are looking for. They don't know what they want. Sellers also don't realize that the charts that's in their gold mine or in their practice right now is the gold mine. Sellers typically don't understand technology. They're of a certain age where they don't understand it. As a matter of fact, they fear it. And they don't want to bother with it. They want to leave it up for the buyer to make those decisions. But what's worse is that it's not their fault. It's the brokers are ambiguous because it's not their job to make the practice more valuable to sell. Their job is to bring buyers and sellers together and have a transaction, not to actually make the practice more valuable to resell. That's the job of the broker. So if you're in this particular instance, what would you do? What would you do? We all know that today it's a seller's market, but sellers are selling the practices for far less than they're actually worth. That's the key thing. They're selling it for far less than they're worth. Sellers don't know that brokers are undervaluing the practice using paper-based or traditional methods. That's key. They've got formulas, but they're typically traditional or paper or manual. And that's a thing of the past. Sellers don't and brokers don't know that there's better ways of establishing valuation for practice. And what's worse is that the seller, meaning you guys, are the ones that are paying for it. Nobody realizes this area, and so I hope that you guys are prepared to sort of take notes as we go through this webinar. So if you use a broker, my key thing is it's not their fault. It's not the broker's fault. You have to understand that, again, a broker's job is to bring buyers and sellers together, and what they do to value your practice is they look for what I call the easy-to-get information, historic information, like the type of dentistry you do, billings, payments, hygiene, active patient count, things like that. Like those are generally easy to obtain data, information out of your practice management software program. And that is not the whole story. So my key thing here is your history is not what you're selling. You are not selling that. That's very, very key. So when the broker is looking for historic information, that's not what you're selling. You are selling the income opportunities that are hidden in your charts. That's opportunities that was diagnosed by you, a doctor, that's sitting hidden in your charts, whether it's a paper chart or an electronic chart. Because a lot of software programs do not have the ingenuity that I'm about to describe to you built into their software program. So do you know what buyers are looking for? So I do. I mentioned that earlier. So I've taken the time to actually interview both buyers and sellers. And how I did is I walked around trade shows and I literally profiled dentists. I stopped and talked to younger ones, and I stopped and talked to older ones. Some of them were my clients. Some of them were associates in offices already. So there is, I took quite a sample base, and I did this for years. So it's not like it was just one instance. I did this for years. So I asked very specific questions. What are buyers looking for when they're looking to buy a dental practice? Key thing is they're looking for a ready-to-move-in practice to start working and start earning. These dentists, and I'm going to call them younger dentists, but they are not necessarily younger. They are the buyers. They don't want a fixer-upper. They want to take possession, and they need to start generating income. It's not that they want to start generating income. They need to start generating income. Second question is that I asked was, who do they rely on to teach them how to manage a practice? And what's interesting is, even though there's many different courses that they take in school and all these other seminars and things that you can take, or webinars that you can take, the key thing is that they rely on the seller to teach them about the ropes for that practice. So they look to you to be a mentor. That's satisfying. You've got the young guns kind of looking at the sellers to say, okay, what do I need to know about this practice? What do I need to know about the patients? So how do I run an office? Because they've never owned one before. So if you really think about it, they need to learn. And as a matter of fact, if you think about it right now, at this very moment, you are learning something new. So learning never, ever stops. One of the other questions I asked was, how would you find a dental practice for sale? Well, this was interesting. They would typically buy the office where they associate. Well, that's a no-brainer. Or they go to a broker, right? That too is a no-brainer. But what's interesting is that in most of the magazines that are published in dentistry, there's a classified section in there, and that's where a lot of dentists post for sale. They got their practice. And what's interesting is that these younger dentists, they don't pick up a magazine. They don't pick up a printed magazine. They will look online for sure, but they won't pick up a printed magazine. So it's kind of misplaced if you put an ad out in a classified section. That's the important part there. So what do you need to do as a seller? Again, you need to make your practice more attractive by giving buyers what they want to buy. In so many words, if it was real estate, I'd say give it more curb appeal. And you need to make simple improvements now to find a way to get top dollar for your practice when you sell it. Those are the two key things here. I'm going to just take a moment here to recap what I've just talked about in the last 15 slides, because we're probably going to go through another 15 more, and I just want to make sure that we're digesting this sequentially. So we looked at the trends, we qualified what buyers want, We qualified what sellers do not know. So let's talk about getting into the gold in the practice. And now I need you to stop to think about some of the paper charting activities that you pay your staff to do every day. They manually pull charts. You write, or your assistant writes information in it. You bill from them. They file charts away. If you have a digital or charting system already, you basically do the same thing except you do it digitally. So there's nothing special here. You do, hopefully the staff, they book the next appointment for the patients, and then they go ahead and they file the chart away or they close it if you have an electronic charting system. So what's important here to understand is that the data, whether it's written or whether it's entered into a basic charting system today, it's still the same data. All that information is being put into a database or put into a wall of charts, is what I call it, and it's just being socked away. So key thing just to identify what's in those charts is a given. You've got your today's treatment, chart notes, future treatment that's required, or treatment plans. You've got next appointment that's required, next recall that's required. So all that key information is put in that chart. And if you have thousands of charts, and most of you do, you can multiply that kind of information times 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, 8,000 or more, and you have all of this information hidden inside of the charts. All of those treatment opportunities are sitting in there languishing, and that amounts to hundreds of thousands of dollars. Like, that's the key. That's the gold right there. All of this information is hidden in there, and it's hundreds of thousands of dollars languishing in them because nobody thinks about that. You might have walked by your filing cabinet or your server every day for the last 10, 20, 30 years, but you might have thought about, what's sitting in there, maybe, but typically you guys are busy enough. Typically, no. So that's key, is realizing that you guys, it's sitting right in your practice. That's the opportunity. That's the goal that we're talking about. So I just want you to take a moment. If you take a moment, close your eyes, and I want you to picture your filing cabinet. Now, if you have a wall of charts, imagine if you can plug that wall of charts in, that cabinet in, and it could talk to you. If you have an electronic charting software program already, wouldn't it be nice if you can organize those charts into treatment opportunities and creates a nice handy report, but it reports it out to you. A smart charting program, system like Maxident, would tell you what's buried inside of it, and it would tell you what's languishing in them, and what the point is it will tell you, versus it just hanging there as a wall of charts or sitting in a server in an electronic chart, and it's just literally sitting in there. There's nothing grabbing all this information and compiling it. Now, one of the key things is I know that some of the listeners tonight will be talking, might have other software programs, and there's one in particular it's called Money Finder. You guys might have heard of it. But the key thing is that you have to go in and look for it. It helps you find the money, but you still have to go in there and look for it. So it's just the same as if you're trying to pull paper charts off a wall, or you're trying to look inside a computer system and find any treatment opportunities that are outstanding, that are incomplete. What I'm saying is that our software program connects those dots, not for the dentist, for the staff to look after. The dentist still keeps doing the dentistry. That's key here is when your system doesn't connect the dots and you put your practice up for sale, again, you're giving away all of that potential income for free. Doesn't that hurt? And up until now, you haven't realized it. Your broker hasn't realized it. The broker is supposed to be the expert. But what's worse is that you end up paying for it. And it's not piddly amounts of dollars. It's a lot of money. So I'm going to take this opportunity now to recap again. So you've just learned what buyers want. You've just realized that there's a gold mine hidden in your charts and how you're going to get that information out. And you have to understand that technology is making it easier to mine that gold in the practice. And brokers aren't looking at making your office more attractive and making it worth more. So you need to do this and do it one step at a time. So I'm going to actually describe to you one emerging trend that is, when I start talking about this, I don't want to get into anything too technical, and I don't want this to be a jibber-jabber type of webinar where nobody understands anything, but I'm going to try and simplify everything so you guys understand the power and the science behind data. Now, what exactly is data? Data is the information, right, that you currently write you handwrite in your charts, or you put into your existing computer system, but it's information, it's data. And today's modern practice and where dentistry is going to go with these buyers buying out these practices and improving them is that everything's going to be data-driven. Now, I'm going to describe to you, I already described to you what data is, but what a data-driven practice is it takes the information, data, which is factual information on your patients. It can be tracked because it's already being compiled in your system. It can be measured, and it, of course, is evidence. It's factual information. What data-driven means is it actually takes that data to drive your practice forward. Now, if you look at the definition from Wikipedia online, is that progress in an activity, which is practice management, is compelled by data versus intuition, personal experience, gut feelings, anything like that. These are actual facts. So when I describe this, if you're at a point where you want to sell your practice in the next 10 years, it is absolutely critical that you start compiling and gathering this data, and you have a system that does this, and produces nice handy-dandy reports that you can actually say to your broker, look, I have $380,000 sitting in my charts, or you give it to the buyer that buys your practice to say, look, here's a list of patients that need all the treatment, all of their insurance, how much insurance is available, all of those details so they know exactly what they have to do next. The key thing is if you're not thinking about selling in the next 10 years, and I'll explain to you why I say 10 years, is that you can actually use this to start producing more income for yourself and creating a high income practice. And that's what you're going to sell in 10 years. So, or 15 years, if you might fall in love with dentistry all over again. So the key thing is that the power is you have the information to sell your practice to get top dollar, or you have the information and the know-how to create a high income practice today, a high producing practice, to be exact. This is my mantra: no more management guesswork. As a dentist, you guys took dentistry. Not many. Some have taken an MBA program to understand how to run and operate a business, but this simplifies it. It just tells you to act on facts. There's no more guesswork. It's there in black and white. So I want to sort of just give you guys some evidence here. So this is, I just want you to know that this is actual information out of databases that I've taken, and that none of this stuff that I'm saying to you is what I would say blowing smoke. This is actual real data. So I have an office here that has 1,000 active patients, and I'm only talking about treatment plans. I'm not talking about recalls, right? They had $300,000 in treatment plans. Active patients have $300,000 in treatment plans. Now, if you had a software program or didn't have a software program, if you had a software program that missed this, you would have sold your practice and robbed yourself of $300,000 right there. That's huge. And of course, you can see what the numbers are. I have at the top end of an office with 18,000 active patients. Of course, they had $3 million in treatment plans. So that's the range. But clearly, I don't care if it's $300 or $300,000 or more. There's a lot of money there. So when you have a data-driven practice, key thing is you're selling your practice based on fact. You can print reports in black and white. It makes buying your practice for any buyer a no-brainer because they're buying profit. They're not buying you. They're not buying your history. They're buying profit. You get a great price and retire well. We certainly hope so. The new owner, like I said, doesn't have to figure out who they're going to see next or where they're going to generate income, because you can hand them a list of patients that need treatment. Now, I'm not here, like Lauren said, I'm not here to sell you anything specifically, but I'm going to actually just touch upon very critical points of Maxident, my software program. That way you can see just what's built into the program and how easy we make it. Now, Maxident's been around 35 years, and I know there's other software systems out there that have been around for as long, and they don't have these, I call them intelligent systems built in. It's one thing to have all this information sitting in a computer somewhere, but it's another thing to actually put it in nice, interpretable, meaningful reports, and that's what our system does. So I'll talk to you about Maxident being state-of-the-art, the technology side of things. It absolutely is. It's tablet friendly. You can use voice dictation. It has artificial intelligence built in. Touchscreen ready. If you don't want to use tablets, you can use touchscreen computers. Like, it's got all the bells and whistles in the software program to give your patients the impression that, wow, this dentist, this office really uses technology to their advantage. It's smart. It's designed to make more income. Practice management typically has been an operational software program, and that is important, but Maxident is that and then designed to make you more income. The service side of things, our subscription is to help your staff continually find income opportunities and what to do with them. And it shouldn't bother you any. You just got to keep doing the dentistry, which is what you love. Maxident's been, like I said, doing this for about 35 years, so we've got experience in all kinds of dental practices. So whether it's a startup, or you're buying somebody out, or you are selling, or you have one practice, multiple practices, have multiple disciplines, all those combinations, we can handle all of that. So here's the key things for you guys to take notes. There's three principles to maximizing your income. Only three. Anything else is too complicated. Let me just boil it right down. I'm going to talk about features and functions, and the next I just want you to finish reading the slide. You have to understand that your software program currently falls short of teaching you, all of you, where the income opportunities are in your practice. They fall short. Like, to me, there's software vendors in the United States that have 50,000 users. 50,000 dentists don't have, they might make a good living, but there isn't a foolproof, easy to understand system like this to boost their income. And with the changes in dentistry and everybody doing certain things that now is being farmed out and not taking place in the dental office, like for example, we've got some denturists that are now doing implants, and we've got hygienists that are going independent. So now, what's going to keep your patients coming back to you? All those things are happening in different provinces and different states. So it's very important to make sure that you've got income systems built into the practice and that you're maximizing it. So we've got three systems. Maxident never lose a treatment plan system. Literally, it describes it. This is for the restorative department, the dentist. It captures your treatment plans. That's a given. This system instantly finds patients with treatment plans on file using, again, the industry's first age treatment plan report. So everybody understands every software program has an aged accounts receivable report. That's a given. That's aging money that's owed to you. What about patients with treatment plans that you need to complete that's aged? Work that has to be done. I think that's so simple, it's brilliant. I'm the first one that came up with that. The result, an increase in your income and an insurance for optimal patient dental health. We never lose a treatment plan, or they don't get buried somewhere. Your income will increase, and your patients will see you to get the treatment plans done. Second thing, Maxident never lose a patient recall and appointment system. That is self-explanatory because it's descriptive. So this system will track patients with recalls and no booked appointments, tracks patients that have fallen through the cracks. Again, every software program has a recall system built in, but what's special about this is that it tracks all the patients in rotation. That's the easy part. But what happens is it tracks all the active patients that have fallen through the cracks and reports them out. So then your staff can go ahead and look at that report daily or weekly if they wish and make sure that these patients are properly in rotation. You can customize frequency visits for patients that need more perio attention. It's very, very flexible. But what this also means is that the result that you could expect with a never lose a patient recall and appointment system is that you're going to keep your hygienist chair full, you're going to keep the patient attrition down, you're going to keep retention up, and you're going to keep the income flowing in. Now, isn't that's again, those 4 things in this one little section of the program. Very easy. Common sense things. Now, the last thing that you need to understand is our Maxident never lose an insurance approval system. This is key. This is going to make sure that you get paid for the treatment that you have done and that you get paid for the treatment that you're about to do. That's critical. It makes sure that the patients that have approvals get the treatment that they need in time. Why? Because I give you an age report. Simple. It makes sure that your patients are not surprised. I don't know how many times this has happened. Not surprised and upset with you or the practice that they have a balance because they thought their insurance company was going to pay, and clearly they didn't. So now you have to either adjust it to keep that patient happy or write it off. That's horrible. Let's make sure that our system, and it does, coordinates insurance policy reset dates for treatment plans to help you maximize your production. So what that means is if a patient's insurance policy is going to reset in the next 2 months and they have a treatment plan on file, they give the report, one report to look at to say, okay, these patients need to have an appointment within the next 2 months because they have an allowance left on their policy and they need treatment. So let's maximize it. There we go. The result? More completed treatment plans equal higher income, healthier patients, no more write-offs or unhappy patients, and no stressed out staff or stressed out dentists due to insurer approval errors. It's all here. All here. All it is a tool for your staff. I've named this Maxident Never Lose series. It's our 3 systems, and it gives you the tools to mine the gold, right, out of your charts or out of your existing computer system. And if you're not selling in the next 5 to 10 years, you're going to create a high income practice in the meantime. And either way you look at it, you're never going to lose with Maxident Never Lose systems. So all of this is near and dear to my heart. Lauren had mentioned earlier at the introduction that I recently bought a company, or bought Maxident 3 years ago. And it's absolutely key that I share the story with you because it is in dentistry. While it's not a dental practice, buying and selling a business is more or less the same process. We didn't use a broker, thank goodness, because we didn't have to pay brokerage fees. We actually came to a conclusion ourselves. But what you need to know is the concept behind it. So I mentioned before that Maxident's been around 35 years. I've been with the company 15. I started as a sales rep, and today I'm now company owner. When we were when the previous owner, the founder, was in the selling phase, he had to put a value on the business, much like you need to put a value on your practice. I'm going to try and draw some parallels here. If I wasn't going to buy it, someone else would. And because I worked for him, I was like his associate, right? So the founder originally did everything to make the company more attractive for a buyer. I was the first buyer, the premier buyer, but doesn't mean that I was going to buy it. So what he did is he invested in the business and he invested in the technology, and that's why we have a state-of-the-art software program today. And I knew what it was worth because I worked here day in and day out, so I knew how many customers there were, and I knew what they were buying and how much they were paying, and I knew what dentists needed and where the next step is for dental offices and what the new technology is that they're going to want to buy and add to the practice, and teaching all dentists about this. So he went and updated all the technology. And had he not done that, key thing here is, had he not reinvested in his practice or in his business, I would have had to make those technology investments. Therefore, I would have negotiated the price down in order to pay for those improvements. So the very next slides, the next few slides, I'm going to talk to you about it will cost you twice principal. There's a principle here that's involved, and I'll explain it. So the key thing here that when I bought the business is we needed a 5-year track record. That's what the bankers wanted. They wanted to look at the track record. So you needed to have that. So ideally, he wanted, he meaning the seller wanted a high income business to sell. Of course, it was a high income business because I was the one selling. So, and I knew it, like I said, I knew exactly what I was buying. So the track record for the financiers looked excellent because it's like it was a no-brainer for them to finance, hence the reason I own it today. The key thing here is for you guys, when you're just approaching the point where you're thinking about putting your practice up for sale, you've got to take this principle into consideration because it, again, is key. So I'm going to use numbers, make simple numbers to keep it simple because I'm not working with a calculator here, but I'm going to put it in very simple terms. Today, the value of your practice is $500,000, $500,000. And you have invested $70,000 in your practice because that's what it costs you to modernize it. That means add computers, replace your practice management system, all of those things. You've added technology in the practice. Now your practice is worth $500 plus 70 is $570,000. So you're asking $570,000 for your practice because that's what you've done. That's what it cost you to make all those improvements. So let's say that you didn't invest the $70,000 in improvements. Just stop to think about that because I know that's what a lot of you guys are thinking. So the buyer that's looking at buying your practice is going to negotiate you down $70,000 to $430,000. So they're going to say to you, hey, look, it's going to cost $70,000 to modernize this practice, so I want $70,000 off the asking price. So in essence, you would get $430,000 for your practice, not $570,000. And the principle here is if you made that $70,000 investment in your practice, you would get $570,000, not $430,000. In essence, you've paid for it twice. That's the it'll cost you twice principle. So let's fast forward 5 years. So today you've done it. You've taken some of my leadership. I've looked, my techs and everybody's looked after that. Myself and Dr. Levine have told you what you needed to do in order to modernize your practice. So let's fast forward 5 years. Now you have a high income practice for sale. You have all of your financial reports prove that, plain and simple. You have a 5-year track record to prove it. And you've made your practice a no-brainer to buy. So right now I know that in your mind you still have some doubts. You're thinking, but what happens if the buyer doesn't like the x-ray unit I bought, or the computers I bought, or the screens, or the color of the walls and the flooring, or the windows that I put in, or whatever it might be? My answer to that is, who cares? They are buying profit. You are selling a profitable, high-income practice dental office. If they want to change anything to their preference, like the type of windows, the color of the floors and the walls, whatever, let them do it on their dollar, not yours. You're not paying for it because you already have. I hope it'll cost you twice formula, kind of is self-explanatory. So I look at this as what's going to be in it for you. I look at this as you want your last 10 years to be your glory years. You want to have, you need a 5-year income track record. The sooner you talk to us, the better. And if I can help you, I will. If I can't, I'll be the first person to tell you because I don't want the headache. Modernizing your practice has to be part of your strategy. You need to become data-driven, and I need you to understand what it is so you can get top dollar. It is not complicated. You've simplified it so it's very easy to achieve. And you got to remember, the buyer isn't buying you. They're not even really buying your practice. What they're doing is they're buying your track record. For them, it's profit. It's an investment. And that's going to, the financiers are going to look and say, okay, this shirt is a winner. This practice is a winner. You got to buy it. So upon exiting this webinar, I need you guys to indicate if you want to have a private conversation with myself or Lauren, as he mentioned earlier. You got to make sure, for me specifically, what phone number you want me to reach you at, because a lot of dentists don't want their staff to know that they're thinking about this, which I appreciate. There's no obligation, and I'm only taking a certain number of practices. You have to understand this. I'm it's very critical for me to do an excellent job here. And I'm the first one, like I said earlier, to say, if I can help you, if I can't, and if I can't, I will not take you on. It's very, very simple. The longer that you put this off, it may be too late to make these improvements. I want to sort of leave you guys here with a quotation, and I'll just give you a little moment to read it because it's key. Something that struck me. This kind of describes everything in a nutshell. So many words. So I'm just going to leave you my contact information here, or you can email goldmine@maximsoftware.com. You can go to our website, maxidentsoftware.com. Again, that's my toll-free number. And for those of you that need CE points, here's the code. If you want to write that down, you can email goldmine@maximsoftware.com with your contact information, and I will have my staff issue the points for you. And I believe Lauren is going to log us in, and we'll take some questions.
Great. Well, thank you, Cheryl. I thought that was an excellent presentation and obviously a lot of great information. We don't have a ton of questions, just a couple here, which I'll get to, but I would certainly encourage you that if anything wasn't clear or you want more information or you just want to pick Cheryl's brain, you got her now, and it's a great time to ask. So the first question, Cheryl, someone had mentioned that, you had mentioned, I think, that magazines may not be the best place, for buyers to, where if a seller is looking to advertise. So where should they be advertising a practice? What have you found that has the best bang for the buck?
Well, in different states, they do have brokers that have their own website that they post, and they just say what area of the state they're in, how big of a practice, how many patients, really very general information. That's one area. If there's classified sections in your local area, that's another good place. Some dental magazines have an online forum, if you wish. That's where I definitely would invest some dollars, because the buyer doesn't have to be local to you. Somebody could be in, not that this would ever happen, but somebody could be in Hawaii looking to move to New York and look for a practice there. So if you can get on something like Dental Town or London magazines, that would be great. If you're in Canada, look at the Oral Health magazines. They advertise there nationally. Same thing. So, and if you're looking to move from the United States to Canada or vice versa, look at the online magazines for sure. And if you Google it, I'm sure that you'll find something.
Okay. Now, I know a couple of people were a little confused about the cost you twice principle. I don't know if you want to maybe just rehash it for a minute or so, or I can send you the information for the person that asked about that. But maybe if you can maybe just sort of give an overhead, view of the concept again.
I know. Okay. So your practice today is worth $500,000. Nice, simple. You invest $70,000 to modernize it, so then your practice is worth $570,000. It really is worth more than that, but we're just going to keep, even Steven numbers, so it's nice and easy to understand. That's what, because it costs you $70,000 to update the technology. So hopefully you get $570,000 at least when you sell it. But say you didn't make that $70,000 investment. The dentist that's looking at buying your practice is going to say, look, it's going to cost me $50,000 or $70,000, or he might even say $100,000 for me to update this practice. I want $100,000 off your asking price. So it's going to reduce your practice value by, I'm going to say $100,000, just because that's what the buyer says it's going to cost them. So now you're going to get $400,000 for your practice, whereas if you made the $70,000 investment to begin with, you'd be getting $570,000. Is that a little clearer?
Yeah, that makes sense. That you know, you're spending $70,000 to in essence make $170,000. So I think that example makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah.
If someone's thinking about switching to practice management software, what's the process with Maxident? Because will they know ahead of time what data is going to convert, or
oh, definitely, absolutely, and expect data loss. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, there's some data that we can't bring over, but a lot of it you don't need. Like, you need it to function, and eventually you'll build that back, but you cannot get every little piece of information from one software program to another. There's going to be a slight degree of data loss, but the essence of this, of Maxident, is that you are going, your staff is going to learn in order to how to get these income systems in place. Everything that you're used to having now with practice management is going to be there, but they're also going to, because our software is built with these systems, understand how important it is to get that data into Maxident in order for you guys to benefit from it.
Okay. How would you try to figure out the value of a practice? For example, let's say an office is selling for $220,000. It's outdated, it's not digital, but it produces $400,000 a year. But it's a Medicaid office, and they take some HMO, but like 95% of it's Medicaid. I mean, are there formulas that you would have if you're working with an office to help them figure out what the true value of that practice is?
If they had Maxident, I could tell them. If they don't have, because they don't have it, I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you how much money is or income is potentially buried in their wall of charts or in their computer system, because if they're computerized, their software doesn't have the algorithms to report that in some sort of sensible format. Then we'll take X percentage of Medicaid patients, and what's the likelihood of them getting their work done, and how tight your booking systems are, and there's so many things to take into consideration. If they had Maxident, I definitely could, but if they don't,
right. I believe they don't have any. They just posted that they don't have any software. So, is there no easy way to figure it out? I mean, it doesn't necessarily going to be a number based on collections or production. Obviously, to get the true value, you need a lot more information.
Correct. If you're looking at production and collections, that's on your historic data. And that's traditionally what brokers use today. I swear to God, it's like, okay, that is important. Don't get me wrong. That is very important to actually understand how the health of the practice. I understand that. But there's a whole contingent missing, which is the whole purpose of this webinar. Whole contingent missing.
Right. So if they don't, if they're not using software, is that a red flag to you? If a practice, like an older practice, if they don't have the software, if they're just showing them like deposit slips or something like that, or showing them the books, that you may not be getting the full picture.
Correct. Correct.
Okay. What about training? Because a lot of times when someone switches practice management software, they're down for 2 or 3 days, and obviously it's not just the cost of the software, but it's the loss of production. How would you typically recommend if someone was switching to Maxident that they consider the training regimen?
Well, there's a couple ways we can do it, and it all depends on the practice. We'll work with them any which way, but I'll give you some examples. We have training packages where we start with, say, you don't have to shut the practice down for days. You can start with training, for example, the the reception department. That's what I call them, the admin department, and we can start doing that online. And then we can do, say, 2 hours with the hygienist, the hygiene department. And then we can actually come out on site and just tweak those, like while you're up and running and producing. So we can work that way, or we can work on a weekend if that works better for your staff. Like we're very flexible when it comes to accommodating what you need to do, because we do understand, like some offices, when you shut down, it's thousands and thousands of dollars that you're not producing, never mind the cost of paying your staff and then paying us like it's crazy, right? So it's 3 times the cost. So then we're flexible and we'll do it whichever way works.
Okay. Well, we are running out of questions here. I know that if people want to get a hold of you, if people want to know more about some of the concepts you were talking about, can they just contact you directly? I know that when they log out, they have the option of just saying that they would like you to follow up with them, and would that probably be one way to do it?
Yep, for sure. And my staff too will end up. If it's not me, my staff is just as capable of answering their questions and directing them. And we usually have a meeting, so they'll gather some information from you, and then I'll have a meeting with them one-on-one, and we'll sort of plan something for the office. Like, this is the size, the scope, they're computerized or not computerized or paperless, whatever it might be, and we'll lay out a game plan. We do things collegially here, so it's not only one brain; it's a group of us that put our heads together and come up with a game plan.
Yeah. For those of you who are asking, I did record this webinar. The link will probably go out sometime this evening. The latest would be tomorrow afternoon or Saturday, but usually I'm able to get that out, as well as the CE forms. So great, and I'm going to make sure you get this information. Also, Cheryl, some people have given their contact information, their phone numbers. I'll make sure you get the spreadsheet of the attendees tonight so that you can follow up with them directly as well.
Perfect.
Well, I want to thank you as always. This is always great information, and as I said, I've listened to you speak half a dozen times over the last year or so, but every time I'm picking up some new stuff. So we appreciate your time. I know it's valuable, and we want to thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
Many of you know that we do these webinars on a regular basis. So we're definitely going to bring Cheryl back sometime in 2015 for a few times. I think this is always great information. We've got webinars next week, some clinical webinars on overdentures. Dr. Mohan is going to be presenting again. Ken Malamant on aesthetics and prosthodontics is going to be lecturing as well. We've got 6-month smile. So it's definitely going to be a busy week next week, and I think that may be it. We may have 1 or 2 before the end of the year, but we know your time is valuable. We thank you for joining us this evening. When you log out, if you would like to speak with me about any of your technology needs, if you'd like Cheryl to follow up with you specifically with the things that she mentioned, please indicate that, and we look forward to seeing you all on future webinars. Good night, everyone.